turn 7, 8, 9, depending on how many coins you had. It is much more of like a tempo deck that has a big combo at the end of it. So a slightly different style, but already, Lorinda, we're diving into game number 1 in this semi-final. Lee on the top on that Demon Hunter, and jiuqianyu on the bottom on this Garrote Rogue. Quick mulligan.
Something that,
oh wow, I'm not used to this.
Yeah, just keeps the field contact, because that is the only card in the deck. If this deck does prove to have a weakness, it's field contact the deck, as I think you would probably call it. But one of the things we have got to learn is when to do some Garrote. Like, you don't do the full combo, but you'd like to get 6 damage out of it. There's 8 cards left in your deck. Do you put them in, or do you go for more damage later? I think we're going to learn to see people optimizing that over the coming weeks. Especially, they've announced there's going to be a couple of nerfs to Warlock cards. Depending what happens there, this might be one of the better combo decks. We might actually see this deck a lot.
And I think this matchup specifically is probably a little bit strange for these two. I'm not sure how popular just straight up OTK Demon Hunter is in China, on the Chinese server, but this is a fairly new rogue deck, a fairly new version of this archetype. I don't know how much practice has been done in this specific matchup, because in a matchup like this, after X amount of games, X amount of time, you would normally decide, okay, on average, who does their combo first? And if it's not you, you then normally need to do something a little bit extra, right? To either somehow accelerate your plan or maybe generate a new plan to go through to approach the matchup. But honestly, I'm not sure who generally does it faster, because I've simply not seen this matchup that often.
Absolutely. One thing that is reasonably sure is that the Rogue's not going to stick many minions, because the Demon Hunter's perfectly well equipped to remove sort of a couple of waves. We've seen it. It will destroy things like Hunter, for instance. You can't just waggle all your minions onto the board and hope to get lucky. You have got to have a plan. 6 mana Il'gynoth, now a 5 mana Il'gynoth. Not the best situation for Lee, who's probably been hoping for that to be a 4 later on. So he's definitely going to have to take some time to do his combo.
He does have the coin though, so 1 mana less on Il'gynoth plus the coin can still make a lot happen. Still has that Moag in hand, and there's always a chance he might just glide his hand away at some point, but already some pressure being applied, so he might have to... Oh, okay, there's second Moag. He might have to just already use up one of these I-beams to just push back on board just a little bit.
Yeah, the glide's interesting because the Rogue also tends to build up its hand size. And if it gets glod, then that hand vanishes and you have to do it all again. But sometimes you've lost a field contact in the process. So that's a big deal to look out for as well as this goes on. And
it just thickens the deck to make the Garrote harder, right? Which is a big deal. Yep. A little bit stuck here now for Lee.
Yeah, next turn he's going to have to actually start doing things.
It's kind of a cute attack, this, right? Because it is free, because he takes the heal back up from the I-beam. So although at first glance might look like he's making a trade, he's going to take even more damage, and does he really need to hero power down over 2 turns? That 1 damage was effectively a free hit, and it means that the likes of Fell Scream Blast even naturally can kill off this 3-1.
Just going to quickly go through this deck. I didn't go through it when the deck list was shown because I'm like that. But this deck tops out at 3. Like no Kazakus, there's no Mankrik, anything like this in this Rogue deck. It's the more pure version with Penflingers and animated broomsticks. So nothing costs much. If you get an Octobot off, you're never going to have like some nonsense 3 mana card. Oh no, stuck in your hand.
While he's checking out these discovers, already got a glide in the hand, so he might go for Chaos Leech here to kill off this field contact. This is what I was talking about, where jiuqianyu has done like a typical tempo rogue turn here because he has a second field contact, and that's allowed him to get hold of this Octobot. And then suddenly, when you start to look at that hand in a post-Octobot reduction world, it's quite ridiculous.
It really is. I'm actually, well, I'm never going to find out, but I was interested to find out when he chose to play the Neophyte. And when he wanted to put the block in and try and get... Yeah, did he want to just try and push 2 lots of 6 or 7 damage through, or did he want to wait a little while? I mean, it's not Elucia, you don't just win the game when you do it, but I was curious. But his hand has been destroyed by the glide, And Lee does have that Sigil Runner in outcast position, ready to start building his hand back up.
Yeah, also kind of a net profit on combo mana that turn, because although he threw away the reduced Il'gynoth by 1 mana, he gained a 1 mana Moarg, in which then he copied. So he's basically, you know, made up for that difference by reducing 2 minions instead of 1 as part of the combo. So
we are going to see some nonsense in the next 2 or 3 turns where both players just have nothing to do. Lee's hand is refilling though. He's managed to hit a couple of outcast card draws. That's why you can get away with Glide, of course, because you do have that quick recovery. But Rogue can also recover quite quickly, except this time that hand is like a foot, let's face it. It's horrible.
I think Lee is now considering whether he needs to use this Immolation Aura. It is fantastic against Rogue, but he might just think with only the I-Beam that's kind of hard to cast right now in hand, he might decide that, this 5 damage, 6 with the weapon is a bit too much to take. Oh, he's just going to hard cast the I-Beam, okay.
It seems logical.
I really like the hold of the Sigil Runner as well.
This Shroud's exactly what was needed here, though. Even if it misses, which it kind of has, and it's likely to because there's so many minions, and by misses I mean doesn't get a field contact, it's still chewing through the deck, giving you more chance of drawing into the stuff you need going forwards.
It's looking rough though. That Glide might have been the difference here, because jiuqianyu is really behind considering where he was with his hand. He had the Octobot, had a field contact, had tons of stuff to proc off with it. And now Lee, he gets to play Kurtrus and then insta Sigil Runner for an extra reduced card. And he's only a couple of spells and maybe an Arcanist away from just blowing up this game, winning the game number 1 here. He's very close.
jiuqianyu is just considering giving up completely on board victory here. If he doesn't play this neophyte, that's a sign to me that he's just decided that's not happening and would rather have it for a pop-off turn. Yeah, he's going to try and get a little tiny bit of damage through, but he knows this isn't sticking any time. Neophyte has an important quality that it has 2 health, which means that the Org Merchant can actually target it once, because sometimes you get to the position where you've got a field contact and nothing else, and you can't give it +2 spell damage because you'll blow it up. So keeping the Neophyte back for a pop-off there is potentially useful, although he needs plenty more pieces of the puzzle for that to work.
Okay, well there's Octo, no field contact though. And on the other side of the board, Lee is about to go insane here as he has a 1 mana Acrobatics, which is of course now, due to Kurtrus being down, is going to draw the 2 cards at reduced 2 mana each, which makes that Acrobatics easy to get that extra proc effect.
And he's getting
close to drawing his whole deck.
Yeah, very close to lethal damage on Lee's side now.
Efficient is sufficient.
And you see he just doesn't want to have this turn happen at all, but got to do something because he's about to die. That Glide just made, like you called it, it's made all the difference here.
Yeah, look at this, like jiuqianyu just has to pile everything on board more or less. His reductions are frankly terrible, so he's just got to hope now. But that 1 Glide kind of ruined the whole day here. Lee,
Oh, wow.
Okay. Well, now he just needs a bit of spell damage, and this is extremely game over.
Indeedy. Again, like you said, he's just basically going to rifle through his deck, these Acrobatics becoming completely silly. And there's the spell damage. So next turn he will have infinite damage.
Yeah, he can even still Immolation Aura, right, to get the additional draws.
Yeah. I mean, now he just needs to not die, so he's going to try and draw some healing, I guess, because he's got 36, I think it is, next turn. Oh, okay, now he has got infinite damage. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, he can I-Beam if he's really scared, but again, your opponent with 3 cards in hand. I guess the Octo proc puts some fear factor in you if you lead here, like a certain level of it.
It's not so much that he's scared, but he wins next turn guaranteed with what, 5, 10, 15, 45, I don't know, 1 million damage. I can't
I mean,
even
it's
bother
close. It does go
it? Oh my
5
goodness.
to 10 to 1 million in this deck, doesn't it?
It's 15, 36, 120 damage if he wants it next turn.
And this
Please
is the most nothing turn I've seen in Hearthstone for a very, very long time. As jiuqianyu just has to pretty much pass the turn, and he is about to get the bad news that he is extremely dead in every single level here. Game 1 is going to go to Lee with this insane OTK Demon Hunter game, and the thing that stuck out the most to me here, Lorinda, was how comfortable Lee looked executing this game plan. It was just snap decisions, turn after turn after turn after turn, and it led him to this moment.
Yep. As soon as he did the glide, he managed to get lots and lots of card draw, recovered much more quickly, and the rogue deck, we're going to say this a lot over the coming weeks, but I'm going to start the ball rolling. It's a field contact deck. If you don't have the field contact, there's a lot of stuff missing. It's one of your biggest minions as well. It's not like the other deck where maybe we've seen Orange try to solve that by putting Kazakus in. We saw Frozen solve it by putting in Mankrik, little bits of extra damage, a couple of stabs in Frozen's deck as well. This version is field contact. If you don't get it, you're probably not winning the wide game either.
Yeah, and I think just the big deal there was the one-off glide that Lee runs just pretty much won him the game, or at least almost guaranteed the win of the game, right? Because I'm pretty confident if jiuqianyu had his whole hand and it wasn't glowed away, then he would have popped off, right, and probably drew most of his deck and then got those Garrotes in, and maybe he wins that race. But the glide was really, really huge there for Lee, and it is important as well to point out that the only deck, I believe, maybe the Warlock now, because I'm going to sound stupid, but their rogue lists are identical. They're running the exact same list.
Yep, they are. They've got very similar lineups, but had different bands as it happened. There's a look at the deck. I think that Lee had the OTK Demon Hunter and jiuqianyu had the Brute Demon Hunter. Yes. And to break that, because the Brute beats the OTK, in my opinion at least, so to break that symmetry, Lee had to do something or he was going to be behind, so he ended up banning the Brute Demon Hunter just to break the symmetry. He's going to still be in a weird position when he has to take on the D6, but he's going to try and get that done. Anyway, we are going to get another look at this Garrote Rogue now, and as you can see, very little damage in there to start with at least, and no training wheels, no minions to bail you out, no really good curve. You really are, you're not all in on the combo, but a lot more all in than other builds.
Right, yeah, the general plan is you can play Tempo Rogue for the early game, depending on matchup. You can play it like Tempo Rogue, you push a bit of damage, and then that makes you not need as specific a Garrote turn as possible, right? Mm-hmm. I saw it earlier on when I was casting with Derek, where there was just one half wave of minions hit face for like 5 or 6 damage, and then that made the following Garrote like super easy to pull off, and you didn't have to be like extremely reliant on the perfect like double Garrote draw every single bleed kind of combo that's available. But he is going to be going up against the D6 Warlock, and again, a bit of a weird matchup because D6, of course, extremely explosive, and probably one of the single like strongest synergistic combos we've ever seen in the game so far, I think. But when it's getting to that combo, and if it doesn't end the game there and then, well, while saying about how much of a big Garrote turn the Rogue needs to win, well, that makes the turn a lot smaller, right? It doesn't have to do as much damage. So this will be very interesting to see how this one plays out, although there are, of course, big blowout turns from the DC6 Warlock, which can pretty much negate what the Rogue wants to do, because they can pop off at like turn 4 or 5, whereas the Rogue generally needs a much thinner deck later in the game to be able to pull off that massive combo.
Yeah, and plenty of removal, plenty of healing in the Warlock deck, and the Rogue doesn't do its combo very easily, so it's going to have to stick some minions somewhere, otherwise it's just going to lose the race, because D6 Warlock, it's not against the Rogue's got no removal of, Penflinger, woohoo, great, and, a couple of bits and pieces, but the Warlock's just going to be able to stick some minions. It doesn't have to full combo, just put a couple of matrons on the board, cheat a bit of mana, whip out your Stealer of Souls, smash it all onto the board and tell the Rogue, deal with this 2/6, this 5/5, and they're friends, just good luck. So the Rogue's going to have to try and get through there quickly. And honestly, Raven, I usually do a grid before the matchups. Yeah, this is the percentage rough chances of all these versus these. I've just got question marks all over this grid because no one plays Rogue well that I know. So I just go for the question marks and see what happens.
One thing I do want to keep an eye out here from the D6 Warlock side is only if there's an opportunity, of course, but whether a Stealer of Souls is a playable drop on 4. Oh, okay, I might get my wish here. Because if the board isn't that built up, as you mentioned, like, can this rogue consistently kill a Stealer of Souls played on curve? Unless they're very ahead on board early on, I kind of want to say no, and especially now, with jiuqianyu having the School Spirits available on the turn into Stealer of Souls, he can probably clear away any of those small threats that Rogue will play out early, so I'm very excited just to see if the Stealer just gets dropped as an on-curve play.
And there's part of your answer. 2-1 Plunderer, straight out of the box, onto the board.
Right.
Trying to at least get some damage out there because these minions are a little bit chunky. Will also be interesting to see what he takes from the Wand Thief. Like, will he go for a Fireball or something like that just to try and remove another minion if it gets offered? Curious to find out.
This is nice as well because the board wasn't made any wider by Lee. jiuqianyu just gets to coil tap, and I'm about to get my wish, Lorinda, because he's going to be facing down, I am almost certainly sure, a nothing board here. Oh, okay, well...
Now we don't get to find out.
That's annoying. Yeah.
Ooh.
He's going to, of course, make the sensible play of using the free admission now that he drew it. It's a shame. I really would have loved just to see what his options would have been there, but now, of course, he has much stronger capabilities in just a couple of turns' time.
Yeah, and with that in mind, Lee's already up against it. I wonder if we'll see the Neophyte now, just to try and stick something like Neophyte into Wand Thief and see where he's at. It's not the most exciting of turns, but maybe he gets a turn at it. There is no Soul Rend in this particular Warlock, so that's the one thing I guess he's got on his side.
Yes and no, right? There's no Soul Rend in the list, but everything you play dies to a School Spirits, right?
Yeah.
Like, normally, decks are terrified of Soul Rend when it's the damage amount that clears their board that they would normally hover above, right? But School Spirits doing most of the work against Rogue is terrifying here.
I wondered just for a second there if he would take the Flame Strike, because even though it's massively expensive, if you get it reduced along with all these one-drop Org Merchants and stuff, you can probably clear up most of the board, and your opponent might just walk into it, not expecting it to happen. So I was curious, but he is going for the I want to just kill one thing at a time. Again, it makes sense. I was just sort of excited that he might go some other way. Oh, a lot going on now. I wonder if he goes for Secret Passage here.
Either that, or honestly, I was even looking at the potential of... Oh, is he going to try and hit Field Contact? Okay.
Well, he's hit it.
Wants to coin it out.
Will be stealthed, so obviously...
It's quiet.
You save 3 mana by starting the turn with it in play. So this makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I was going to say, before that turn, obviously, I was even looking at his other Field Contact that he did have in hand, and Shadow Step, right? Just to load it up as a 1-cost contact instead of 3 for the turn 6.
So this isn't like the Auctioneer version. 17 cards in deck with the Auctioneer version, starting an Auctioneer on the board. You're considering going for it, but the mana doesn't work like this. There's very few reductions. Might need an Octobot to get that going, so probably can't go for it. He might half go for it. Might try and end the turn with 9 cards in hand and Octobots at the ready.
Well, no matter what happens, I think on Lee's side of the board this turn, jiuqianyu is going to go with the Stealer, 2 mana next turn with the Dark Glare. Starts off with potentially a tap or even going for that backfire. We could be witnessing the beginning of the end here, Lorinda.
Could be, but again, Lee's got through some stuff. There's the Octobot. I wonder if he'll play Secret Passage here and not play anything, so he starts the next turn with 9 cards in hand, and one of them is an Octobot and he's ready to go. He would love to play the Octobot now and Shadow Step it, but doesn't have the mana. I feel, at least.
What if he Shadow Steps and just Brain Freezes the 1/1?
Okay.
I'm wondering whether he wants to Shadow Step the Field Contact after the attack And then he can just throw... Oh, or I guess he can throw the passage.
Yeah, throwing the passage is the normal way, but also, yeah, your way does save 2 mana going into the next turn.
Because I think it's fair to say you can't expect this field contact to be alive next turn. I think that's
correct. If this is alive next turn, you've won the Hearthstone game, so you don't mind that.
Yeah.
You plan around the incredibly likely eventuality that this field contact will lose contact.
Now, we're going to see a test here from jiuqianyu to see how good his D6 Warlock really is, because I'm pretty sure this is a pop-off turn. 1 mana Dark Glare, 2 mana Stealer. I guess he is neophyted, but it doesn't matter if you're paying health for cards and not mana.
Losing the hand there, a bit irritating for him in the slightest. Will slow down his card draw potentially. He hasn't actually got any card draw in hand, if I'm looking right. Or is that a
backfire
in the middle? Okay, that's a backfire in the middle.
Weirdly enough. Okay. I was even wondering whether he goes the 4-cost Stealer in Hero Powers. And then goes from there, so that it's like a half turn, and then the turn to follow up with, he can go big, you know, without the Neophyte being a problem.
Kind of like that plan, but he was intent on building his health back up, realizing that, yeah, this is getting kind of close. Octo proc it.
Yeah, this matchup is not timed by the turn timer, what turn we're on. It's timed by how many cards are left in each player's deck. Is how this matchup normally goes.
The thing I'm learning more and more to look for when someone's going off in this particular one is how much mana they have left, how much mana their cards cost. So he can't do this turn because his Garots both cost 1 and he only has 0 mana. He had 2 mana when I said it, when I started that ramble. So he's looking after his Arcanists so that he can get the spell damage next turn. He's going to Shadow Step the field contact, and then next turn he should be able to get everything down so he can do it all in 1 turn.
He could go this turn, right? If he Shadow Stepped his Octo and then used the Ethereal Log Merchant on the Octo, which is 0 mana.
Sure, actually.
And then the Garots become 0. There's another Og Merchant that's 0 already.
Okay.
So that's 2 spell damage as well. Like, he could go, I think.
But he would need something else to play to actually draw the cards. I made the mistake a few times of thinking I was an auctioneer deck, so like, I'll prep to draw my last 6 Garots. Oh, I didn't draw a card because that's not how this deck works. I mean, I never actually made it that far before realising. But he will win next turn, I think, if it is the next turn.
That's interesting. I think he could have gone then, right? Because the second Og Merchant procs a draw, and then his Prize Plunderer would be 0, which then he could use on the Broom.
I think he would have been low, though. I think I mean, I don't know what's left in his deck exactly, but it's likely there's a blocker in there that he needs to cast to continue the chain, and it's going to cost 1 or 2.
Sure.
I get where you're coming from, but I think he might have had to trust to luck, whereas this way, I think he gets it done most of the time, if not all of the time. Like, his whole hand doesn't add up to much, and he can afford to do the Octobot, so he'll try and draw the last 6 cards, using the Orc Merchants that cost 0, and then he'll use 1 Orc Merchant. He'll Octo. He'll proc that when he's drawn as many cards there, and hopefully everything costs 0 and he gets it all done.
That is under the condition that he's allowed to.
Yeah, if he's actually alive,
might be dead.
Might not be.
Yeah. Depending on how quickly jiuqianyu can pull off this turn. He has, of course, activated Tamsin. I believe that's a couple of burnt cards just to get further down into fatigue. Let's see if this was clean or if this was a mess.
Lee still doesn't know. We don't know. It looks like it was a mess from the head underhand posture, but who knows? It's very hard to tell sometimes.
Yeah, he just didn't quite get there. Left him on 8 health. Did look quite a tricky turn, and one of the drawbacks of the weapon, of course, is that it reduces everything down, and obviously playing that matron wouldn't really have achieved anything.
Here we go. So yeah, reduce the hand. He thinks he's got it done without having to reduce the cards that are coming. So he'll be able to double proc the Octo in terms of giving it double spell damage. That means all of his Garots now do 4, and he's calculated it, I believe, so he gets all the way through. Either that, or he's going to be able to Shadow Step, and he'll be fine.
Because he has
card left.
he even has triple spell damage if he really wanted it, right? He could replay an Aug Merchant onto the field contact, which he might do.
He's got it now. This is a huge amount of damage, and he's going to be 2-0 up. Nicely done. Didn't panic. He could have lost there, but I think the burned hand of Gul'dan was a big deal in the middle of that.
Sure.
Because it meant that this pop-off turn was 8 damage short. I didn't see if he could have still done it anyway, but obviously 3 more cards. Yeah, big deal.
Yeah, really good win there for Lee, honestly. And really just composed play, right? Like you said, he could have gone earlier, decided to wait, thought he had the chance, and then as soon as he was able to, you don't bring a deck like that to a tournament like this and not be comfortable, right? And he just locked it in, knows what to do. And that's what I mean by it's less about what mana and what turn of the game you're on and more how deep both players are through their decks. Because as soon as the rogue's looking at, say, between 5 and 10 cards, you have to... excuse me. You have to expect to die the next turn. You carry on, Lorinda, I'm just choking.
Okay, yeah, so while Raven just chokes on his own words, just going to point out how hard it is to manage your Octobots when you first pick up this rogue deck. It looks very simple. Look, everything costs 1 and you get it down to 0 and you draw infinite cards. When you watch these good players doing it, it is fantastic. Trust me, when you try it yourself for the first time, everything costs like 9 mana somehow, and the Octobots come out upside down, and then you haven't got an Octobot, and you get all the way to the end of your deck, put in all the Garrots, you're about to win, and you realise you've got no mana left to play a minion to draw the 6 Garrots. These good players are making it look so smooth.
It's one of the decks where you'll go, oh, you know, a lot of the pros are playing this, saying it's insane. I've saw them do just incredible kills. You queue it, not even get close and die. You go, okay, game 1. You queue it again, not even get close and die, and then you delete the deck and say it's trash. Like, that's probably the average player's response to that deck, at least on ladder. But yeah, it is very, very powerful, as we can see so far. And it does mean now Lee is only having his Quest Shaman left to get a potentially very smooth victory and a smooth pathway into the finals here. And he is running this 1 Earth Elemental in there. I know there's been discussions from some players that 1 Earth Elemental is the perfect amount of Earth Elemental. I'm not sure if I'm on board with that thought pattern, but if Lee's doing it, it can't be all bad.
Yeah, the argument goes that you don't really want 2 of them, but yeah, the counter argument goes that you do really want 2 of them. Yeah, it's not much of an argument, right?
It would be great. That's just 2 massive minions to beat your opponent with. But yeah, like again, Quest Shaman, I think just a cornerstone of the meta right now. Regardless of what you either queue on ladder or choose to bring to any given tournament, Quest Shaman has to be a consideration because you will face it. Like, even if you don't face it every single match, it'll be almost all of them, as we've seen. It's like, what, Warlock's the only thing that's been brought more? Again, Warlock best class in the game right now, and then it's Quest Shaman, pretty much guaranteed. So yeah. A lot of Quest Shaman's been played out today, and he's got 3 goes at this, Lorinda, which just naturally puts him at the advantage. But 3 not necessarily straightforward matchups, right? The Mirror, D6 Warlock, and the Garrote Rogue. So all of them aren't simple matchups. It's not like he's facing an aggro lineup where you're like, okay, 1 in 3 to beat an aggro deck seems good if you're on the Quest Shaman.
Yeah, fancy my chances against a priest. Thank you very much. I'll just plop this 7-8 here and you can look at it for the whole game. But it's going to have to generate some pressure against these decks, especially against the Warlock deck. This is a toughie, but I hear more and more people sort of talking in terms of it's 50-50 against everything. I still don't quite agree with that personally. I still think, you know, I like it against the aggro decks and not so much against the more control-y combo decks.
Right.
But, yeah, whatever you want to call them, I don't care. They're decks that aren't aggro. I don't care what you want to call them.
I would put it in the base of this Quest Shaman is a good all-rounder deck. It's not 50% versus everything, but it's one that you're not going to have too many horrible matchups, and you're going to have a few good matchups, right? It's just a good, solid all-rounder, which, again, I think is why it's so heavily featured in this tournament and in the game in general. Because you just can't go that far wrong if you're playing Quest Shaman right now.
Using to unlock his mana crystals, ready for next turn. Interesting there. Obviously, he gets to unlock them again pretty soon because of the way the quest works. But this is rough. He's only on 1 out of 3 of the quest, so he can't just coin out one of these 3 drops, then play another 3 drop next turn. He needs to actually make a plan of some sort here.
Right. I still think it ends up being coin 3 drop though, because everything else just isn't quite good enough. And at least this is something to start putting some pressure on the Warlock here.
Yeah. I mean, it's a simple equation against Warlock in general with any deck. The more damage you can do to them, the harder it is for them to go off. It's that trivial, in fairness. How much less is obviously open for massive debate. I doubt that anyone has an issue being on 26 health, for instance. But, you know, when they're down to 10 or 7 or 4, each point of damage makes a massive difference to how easy it is to go for it.
The first tick of the quest procced. We get to see Lee's follow-up now with this Feral Spirit once again.
Yeah. Now he gets the unlock, which means he can Earth Elemental next turn.
Yeah, and that's
counted something last turn.
That's the big deal, isn't it? Earth Elemental. There's just not great answers, and even Demonic Assault. Like, generally, Demonic Assault can be very good at stalling for time, but against Shaman that does extremely good job of removing 3 health minions, you can't feel comfortable, right?
Yeah, apologies for messing up that curve last turn, by the way, but yeah, there we go.
I'll let you off
he,
this
of course, could coin 3. I was forgetting he was overloaded for 1, so coining a 3 made me think he was on 2, because I'm stupid.
Right.
Okay, anyway, moving swiftly on. Thank you for letting me off, appreciate it. It's planning time for D6. Already this pressure has meant that you can't just play the Stealer, because it would get destroyed quite easily. Which is making everything else a lot awkward here for jiuqianyu.
Yeah, I think he has to just be happy at Demonic Assault. Here kills off one of the wolves and just puts 2 taunts in the way to buy some time. The problem is, if Lee plays Earth Elemental, and then even if jiuqianyu has his combo turn, if the combo turn isn't extremely strong, then he probably just dies to the Earth Elemental plus a spell, right? Like, it gets awfully close to him just being dead. So this combo turn, if he goes for it right now, not only has to go off with the combo and accelerate towards his quest, he also has to kill a 7/8 in a lot of circumstances here.
Yeah, and that's not necessarily fun. It's not that hard, but it's just resource intensive, right? It's going to slow down his mana for other things he wants to do. That being said, this is nicely reduced hand ready to go now.
School Spirits will reduce the ball down just to that Earth Elemental for Lee. Yeah, I'm going to go super wide on the taunts just to deal as much damage, try and kill that Earth Elemental, and put as much stuff in the way as possible. Gets to kill it off with the touch as well. I didn't quite see that was 0. Can get that done no problem.
Nicely calculated. I know it's not necessarily the most complex calculation, but nice to see that his ordering is all in good order.
Yeah, clean kill, honestly.
And Lee now down to the dregs to some degree. It's a lot harder now to generate a way forward. He'll be looking at that Instructor Fireheart to try and get some sort of closing damage, but needs to be a bit closer than 23 to make that work, of course.
Yeah, I'm wondering if he just kind of goes all in on the quest here and just tries to, like, Perpetual Flame and Serpent Shrine Face or something, and just try and really accelerate Brakan out as quickly as possible.
You can also plan ahead with a Phoenix in the middle.
I think in 2 turns' time, Lee might be half expecting to be dead and not really have a gain from the spell damage.
I don't think he wins it in 1 turn though, right? So maybe he goes for the spell damage, sets up the Fireheart for that turn, and then, you know, I don't think he's got time to necessarily get the quest done, is what I'm saying. So maybe use the Phoenix as a baby quest. Yeah, that's what he's going to go for. He's going to try and Fireheart on the 8 mana turn. And just hope that he gets the +2 spell damage and gets something done that way. I like the plan. I think it makes a lot of sense.
Well, I think the plan now for jiuqianyu is go time. Stealer, Dark Glare, draw cards, Fireworks, and potentially his first win in the series.
Yeah, looking good. If he doesn't botch it, which I suspect he won't.
Oh, second Dark Glare as well. That's a lot of mana gain.
2 turns. Oh my goodness, hand as well. Yeah, here we go. He can do it over 2 turns if he has to as well. So that's the comfort blanket. But I think he might just get it done.
I want to see now, Lorinda. This is what I want. If anyone's bringing D6 Warlock and they can't pull off this turn, then I'm unimpressed. Is this? He has everything he needs, right? It's cheap enough. He's got the quest proc. He's got the mana. The matron will draw as well if he wants it to. Like, it's all looking great here. Oh yeah, of course he hard cast the hand right just to get the Tamsin done.
All of Stormwind, how share my pain.
Okay.
Got plenty of heal as well if he wants it.
I think he does. 14's a little bit scary. Not really scary, but you know, you'd rather not risk it. Now trying to work out how he could actually die from 14, but hey, you die even less from 17. Let's have it. You didn't get it done, Raven. Are you disappointed?
Honestly, I'd call this getting it done, right? Because the cards he has...
Hang on.
Listen, the cards he has left don't deal 22, right? And I guess he could have drawn one more card, right? If he went touch and then coil. Wait, was there even a minion?
You can't redefine what he's getting it done based on whether he does it or not.
Oh, of course I can. There are so many turns where players could have done more with the cards they were given, and they don't do it. Whereas, looking at what's left over here, I don't know what much more that jiuqianyu could have realistically done, right? Like, look at the 4 cards he has as blood cards. Wouldn't have had a...
That's absolutely fair, right? It's just, yeah, it sounded absolute, and then it went into not absolute. But yeah. Now let's see what he goes. In fairness, Lee really cleared that up nicely. And if he's alive, which I don't think he should be, but where's the card draw over here? Lee's got 1 million spell damage on the other side because he gets the Phoenix next turn and a Fire Heart. So Disney's looking after this board.
Yeah, I think he has to actually try and clean this up. Dual Spirits, Stealer of Souls into this Mortal Coil to draw 1. This will need to be pretty good though. Okay, that's pretty good.
It is, indeed.
Fragments, never bad.
Could be huge.
We must hasten. They were just a bird.
Right, so it is going to be pretty much what we thought. I think. Oh, he's got a decision to make, has Lee, actually. Of course, he can play... No, it's not even a decision. It's Brokan into Bloom, which will cast twice, and then Fireheart, and see if you can get the stuff to get it done with the spell damage on board, if he's not dead. But I think he probably...
I don't think he got it off, right? He didn't play Matron, no. Lee now just has to sit and stare while the animations finish on his end.
Yeah. And he'll be making that decision. Now, it's a tough one, so he can have 4 mana with Fireheart.
Oh, lightning bolt.
Cast once.
Okay.
Oh my, that's huge.
Never be afraid.
He's gonna try and heal, right? Yeah, he's not got the mana, has he? Yeah. He was way too overloaded to play the Brokan.
Oh, of course, yeah. Can we just request that Shaman players are always at the bottom, please? So we can see the overload.
We need an additional overload counter right now, don't we?
Either that, or can we have casters who can remember numbers? That'd be useful too. But I'm not one of those. Okay, so yeah, he can't do all the things I said, so he gives it up, and it goes to 2-1. But that's the expected outcome from that matchup. He won't be too disappointed at that point.
Yeah, I think so, yeah. Getting the Brokan active is pretty tough if the Warlock doesn't... if the Warlock has even a reasonable draw. Purely because, like, you see, like, the general big turn from Warlock is between 6 and 7. And, well, mainly 6, I guess. And then if they just land Tamsin safely, which jiuqianyu did, then the following turns are normally the final turn of the game, which it was close enough there. Lee did a good job there, but I think this Earth Elemental getting cleaned up was probably the biggest deal in the whole game, because if that lived and got to attack, then suddenly the health that the Warlock can play with is so reduced that those big big pop-off turns aren't necessarily doable.
Yeah, I forgot that after Perpetual flaming away a monster board like that, he might be just a little bit overloaded, you know?
A tiny bit.
Alright, let's see where he goes with next.
Like we
Choice
said,
between his own rogue deck or his Demon Hunter, right? Oh, it's his own rogue.
no, his Demon Hunter got banned. It's Rogue and Shaman, isn't it? The mirror match.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, right? I think Lee is probably feeling okay with that loss. Yes, there's always a chance you can win, but I think he has probably got a better chance either in the mirror or against the Rogue to try and just build more of a board, put more aggression on, and in the mirror match, of course, you've got to just keep it simple and say it's 50-50. So won't be too bothered. One loss, still got 2 more goes at it, but jiuqianyu has actually had a good job at fighting back, and when I cast him earlier on today, his play for the most part was very considered, and like it felt like he had plans for everything. Again, his warlock turns seemed pretty reasonable there. Yeah, Sol's in chat pointing out that he could have done X, Y, and Z to get one more draw, and then suddenly that one draw can become this, which is true, but I think for me,
Stay in the shadows.
he ticked off most of the boxes, right? He got the Tamsin down comfortably. He was at a reasonable health total. He had a good board. He used the removal he had, and he was in a solid position for the following turns.
And this is a massive match for him. We haven't talked that much about him, but he's been described as on the outside looking in the Chinese scene. And he is looking right in now because Lee is as good as it gets, or as big a name as it gets. If he can take Lee down, maybe he'll get himself noticed a lot more. If he can take this tournament down, maybe he'll get noticed a lot more.
Well,
and suddenly if he gets signed by a team, then you're not on the outside looking in anymore. Then you're absolutely on the inside.
And not only that, his match to get to this semi-final, he played SM Brox,
Right.
which he beat. So, in terms of just the Chinese scene as a whole, he's just beat 2 of the extremely strong players. So I think there's some respect due when he next sees everyone, right, for the next tournament over in China.
Absolutely. And getting signed by a team over there is massive. So if people are watching this, I think he's doing himself a lot of favours right now.
All the... In the meanwhile, the game's is kicking off here in an Octobot nice and early here from jiuqianyu.
Yeah, he's got the hand for it, right? He's got the field contact, so that's the hand for it.
And there aren't... there is the fear. I think he will be sat here a little bit afraid that this gets cleaned up, right? Because this is one of the few combinations of cards, like the Lightning Bolt plus spell damage, to actually deal with this Octo, but we can see that he didn't really get offered the card he wanted. Another Overdraft and Torrent. Best.
No. Definitely not. Kind of the best, because the Torrent would be good next turn for killing Octobots, but it's too late.
Muzzle their magic.
And that thing we've been saying, this isn't just a combo deck. This deck is just a pop-off deck sometimes, as Rogue can do. Look at this. One of the reasons he wants to get his hand reduced is just a whole load of stuff. And we all know that this can get Shaman, but he's made it as awkward as possible with that Divine Shield.
Right. And I like the ending there, finish on the Shadow Step. Field Contact means he can have a similar, potentially looking turn next turn, or he can go for that Secret Passage. And Lee has to respond with a fairly slow turn, and suddenly there's a lot of damage coming Lee's way.
Yeah, no Perpetual Flame equals perpetual damage from the other side of the board.
Oh. Okay.
Octo-procto time.
He
Get that
doesn't
back in his hand ready for next turn.
Yeah, he could bounce it, or he could just Secret Passage again. Is that ever worthwhile?
Possibly, yeah. Penflinger and Shadow Step the Octo, though, gives him 2 cards that stick in his hand out of this passage, so that'd be tempting, even though it's not really much mana.
That's true, that's true.
And then he can still passage again, I guess.
That's enough, right? Probably.
He's just using everything he can out of his passage.
I do like the Shadow Step, though. I'm a big fan of using Shadow Steps when they're available.
It wasn't me.
And I think he can replay the Octobot because it's a perpetual flame protection and it does some work, but he's going to hold it so it's under his own terms. That also makes some sense to me. Octobot management is a very hard part of this deck. Because Shadow Steps are really important for other things, so you only get 2 Octobots and then your 2 sort of your wild cards, your Shadow Steps that you have to use also incredibly efficiently. And like you said already during this game, field contact's such a good target for your Shadow Step. Sometimes the spell damage is a good target for your Shadow Step if you're struggling, although not so much in this deck unless you're against maybe Warrior. You can usually do 32 at the end of the...
Definitely one of those careers you don't plan to be in but fall into. You get asked, oh, what do you do? And you're like, yeah, I'm in Octobot management. And I wanted to be a baker. I wanted to be a baker, but I just started out low up, worked my way up to management, and now there's tentacles as far as the eye can see.
Yeah, what do you call an Octobot manager? When your friends ask you, like, what is Octobot management? Like, how do you answer it?
You don't, you run.
Good question. Good answer. Sounds like what's a caster?
Yeah.
My response to that as well.
Oh.
Okay.
Interesting.
I mean, a 3/6 is just a thing, right?
Too quiet.
Well, a 5/5's a thing as well. You got offered Scoundrel, right?
Yeah.
Am I missing something here? There's only holy spells for that 3/6, right?
Yes. And I don't think there's any in the deck. I might be wrong there.
Huh, okay. Maybe just value in the slightly higher health.
I mean, it's going to trade, not go face. 3 kills everything apart from the Octobot, and 6 is more than 5. That's my amazing analysis of this situation.
Fair enough.
Initiating overdrive.
Here, though, look at these reductions.
Yep. There's a lot of reductions there. And he's actually going to take a moment to decide what he wants to do, but you don't get a moment, because if you are going to go for it, which he's not because he's got 1 mana left, you've got to do it pretty quick, because there's a lot of actions to get through your entire deck. Okay, and now he takes a Cone of Cold just for some defense. It's going to work a little bit like a cloak against Shaman, let's face it. And now the only thing he's got left to manage next turn is going to be blowing up your own minions management, if he doesn't just win with what he has on board and a couple of Gogots, that is. One of the things that Penfling is actually one of the cards that people do like in this deck, although it's not nothing's quite a staple on the fringe of this deck yet, but Penflinger does allow you to make space on your board a bit more easily sometimes.
This is really tricky.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just going to be... Maybe it's going to have to just be Lee saying, I'll remove some of the big threats, and then just cross the fingers. Yes, the kill off the field contact makes absolute sense. And go for the Canal Slugger as well, just to heal up as much as possible and remove that Penflinger from the equation, but that's still just a good chunk of damage left over. And I'm pretty sure there's just a good chance he's already dead.
Yep, the only thing that might block it is the fact this field contact's 3 mana at the moment, but it's going to be 2 mana now. The rest of the hand's going to be 0. That looks like it to me, as long as he doesn't make any silly mistakes. Damage, we'll see some weird stuff go on here, because he's going to have to trade in some minions, I think. He's just calculating that now. We might see him heal Lee back up to 30 and then put Lee back down to 24 with the 2 3-attack minions.
I mean, could just trade the Neophyte in, right? He wants to.
Must have an expensive card left in deck.
I'm out of cards.
Maybe one of the Shrouds. Yeah, okay.
Just going to be okay clearing up some of the board, as you mentioned. Who cares about the max health when he's going to be able to push that back again? Gets to
and he's like,
fight this turn if possible, but surely... Okay. I was going to say, surely he wants to play the Shroud if he wants to just get rid of it, but...
I think this is just kill me next turn, I dare you.
Yeah.
On 30. Could probably have... I might be wrong, but I feel like he could have gone for it there. But maybe I'm missing something. There was a small amount of mana. This is just safe anyway.
And what's that, 8 cards that cost a total of 4 mana? Seems good.
The problem with this version, if you do mess it up, if you do play your Ethereal Org Merchants and then you mess it up, you haven't got the damage anymore. And maybe he was just making it easier for himself, knowing that he can't die here.
And to be fair, like you said, yeah, as long as he's not dead, yeah, draw an extra card, right? Like, do the turn after. It gets that much easier. As long as you know that you're 100% not dead the next turn, then why not wait? It makes sense. Show some restraint.
So the only issue that he's not going to have, but he could have had if there had been a perpetual flame, would have been getting a second minion to shoot. That's why the Wand Thief would have come in. So he'd have done... Wand Thief would have got +1 spell damage, and the field contact would have got +1 spell damage. That's why Wand Thief's kind of cool in here. It serves many, many purposes in this deck. Because you haven't got many 2 health minions. It's quite a bizarre deck.
Right. Just the Swindle, Fraud, and Shroud left. It's the last 3 cards here for jiuqianyu.
Yep, as long as he keeps his wits about him. Let's see, has he got 4 minions to play? He will have when the Foxy Fraud comes to play. Has he got the mana to play all of them? Yes, he has. He can play the Grots absolutely fine. He can get through all of the deck, and he will win.
You're paying for my
I've drawn into the Shroud initially as well, so put that out of his mind. Not a problem.
I'm out of cards.
Will have board space, will he?
He can cone
He's got the
his
cone.
own minions,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, that was nice. He picked up earlier.
Care to make a wager, friend?
That's it. That's 4 lots of 6 is 24. Which is more than 22. Which means he's going to win the Hearthstone game. 32 damage in 1 turn from the Garrots. 2 apiece.
I'm almost out of cards.
Yep, nice combo locked in there. And again, just a good job. I think from both players, we've just seen a good knowledge of how this deck works and how much time you can give yourself, right? Like I said, if you've got a huge combo that will kill your opponent and you're not quite confident it'll do it on turn 6, but you know if you do a certain play, it's impossible to die turn 7, and then you can finish the game, why not, right? Just remove or reduce down that percentage of losing as much as possible. And that means, Lorinda, in maybe a weird way, we've ended up the series to a Quest Shaman mirror. Both players, of course, going into this series with similar lineups, not quite identical, but similar. And we've ended up on a mirror match to decide who is going to make it into the finals of Masters Tour Silvermoon. So I can only imagine the nerves for these players, not only to be in this situation in general, but for the decider to be a mirror match. Like, at least for me, I would want to avoid this at all costs.
Yeah, absolutely, but it's a massive opportunity for jiuqianyu. We've talked about it. He's got the chance to break through in the Chinese scene. He's got a chance to break through in our scene as well, but we will see less of him than the Chinese scene will. Getting signed to a team if possible there. I mean, I don't know the likelihood of him being picked up, but if he beats Lee, having beaten, like you said already, Brox, and having got this far, surely he will attract a lot of attention. So this is a massive deal for him. Small difference in the lineups. He doesn't have an Earth Elemental in this Shaman. Do you think it's a huge difference, or do you think it's just a bit of a difference? What's your opinion?
I think it's a pretty huge difference, right? Normally, Canal Slogger is the card that kills anything on average, right? Like, you play Canal Slogger, it's only 4 mana, it takes down any threat, any singular threat your opponent has. And not really the case with Earth Elemental, right? So just the fact that if they come down, you know, roughly equal, then the Earth Elemental will win out. And also just the fact that with the certain hand, you can just bloom one out super early, maybe even before a Canal Slogger is even a play for your opponent, and then you just bank in not only tons of damage, but also such a huge body that your opponent would generally have to play, what, at least 2 cards into to clear? Absolute bare minimum.
Looking at the other side, he does have the Novice Zappers that don't appear in Lee's deck, so a little bit more early game there, and a slightly better Perpetual Flame if needed, I guess, but most of your things have 3 health anyway, depending what comes from your portals, I guess. You might want the spell damage with a flame to go to 4. Maybe a Slogger gets played on an empty board. I don't know how that would happen, but I think like Slogger and Marsh Spawn as well can be one of those cards that just as a 3/4, it's a little bit awkward for your opponent to clear out. But again, with the not easy but relative access of spell damage, normally a single 3/4 isn't the end of the world. It's normally when there's like,
you know, 2 out of maybe like 5 minions are above the Perpetual Flame barrier, that's when you start getting really scared because the odds start to even up that you're going to miss, right? Which is the biggest problem. But insta mulligans from our players here. And just at a quick glance, it looks like Lee got the better end of the stick, at least in terms of initial hand. But jiuqianyu is actually going first, which is, again, an advantage in itself.
Yep, and I mean it is. There's a lot of moving parts in this matchup, obviously, to keep an eye on, including who's got the best board and all that good stuff that Hearthstone is made of. But the thing to really keep an eye on is who's going to do the quest first. The person who gets to get that double charged call is usually one that is a long way in front. But again, there's a lot of moving parts. Maybe you both go slowly and you have to play a charged call early, but to put yourself in front. So let's see how it pans out.
Like a fungus we spread.
Okay.
Probably not what he was after. It's got a powerful effect, but having the delayed minion, I think jiuqianyu really wanted the minion on board to be active, because now in a weird way, Lee's just gained initiative right now, and especially with all these resources in hand, it's got to be looking quite scary. jiuqianyu.
Yeah, he's going to get it done in like 2 more turns, the way he's just drawn all of his overload cards, has Lee. And he's going to be in a great spot, but he's not alone. jiuqianyu also with the double guidance, that can very quickly get a quest done as well. This could be a turbo game, weirdly enough.
Yeah, with both players having access to diligent note takers as well. Like, it's going to be interesting to see which way they go with these spells, whether they want to use it for guidance, for more resources, or whether they want to save it for maybe what comes out of guidance, or in Lee's case, like one of the many other cards he's got access to. Lightning
Bolt's always the interesting one for me, because that is obviously 6 damage for 1 mana after you've completed all the quest parts.
Right.
So if you can hold on to it, it's great, but you often need to use it to A, control the board, but also B, to advance the quest in the first place. So be interesting to see if he does get to hold on to his Lightning Bolt. The answer is almost always you don't get to hold on to it, but you try really hard. Right. Elements have been commanded. Now we're going to stir some stones, Raven.
Yeah, looks pretty good here. Lee taking control of this board. But Perpetual Flame is a pretty good card, also I've heard.
Yeah.
The 0 mana Canal Slugger seems fair too.
Yeah, that seems a super fair card, right? No hurry for him to play that either. Obviously, while he's on 30, that could be an interesting swing turn later on in the game. But he might just choose to throw it out there now because he's just gained the board with his Perpetual Flame.
Yeah, extremely standard Perpetual Flame there that you want to aim for on the first quest finish, where you remove the overloaded crystals, because that's the heaviest overload probably in the deck, right? When you have a wide Perpetual Flame, it's the heaviest single card overload, so you wipe away all those crystals, and suddenly jiuqianyu is looking fantastic in this game.
Yeah, in a great spot with the Slogger as backup, and Lee doesn't know about it. He might know something's going on. He hasn't seen a reduced card, but he doesn't know. He knows that any card could have been played there, so maybe he'll work out that it is a Slogger. Lightning Storm is tempting here just because of the shape of the board, but there's a lot to work out here. When do you want to use this note taker being a big part of it?
Yeah, just being the 1 mana off with the note taker. Looks like he's going to just cash it in and get 2 Lightning Storms here. Although a bit of hesitation now. He does have the option to go Serpent Shrine, even Charge Call, arguably, right? It's effectively a free Charge Call, but no. Going to go back to the original choice there. Lightning Storm this away and gain another one in hand.
Again, the portal is a little bit like the Lightning Bolt. After quest completion, after everything counts twice, direct damage is a big deal. So looked like he was trying to preserve that there, but the turn certainly had many branching paths there. And again, interesting to see how it goes.
And also what's kind of cool about this play is now jiuqianyu will know there's a Lightning Storm in hand. So that'll have like a weird effect on what he plays out. Like he's probably not just going to throw this Novice Zapper out.
For my glory.
Plus, like, you know, whatever in any given turn, because you know one Lightning Storm's just sat ready and waiting to clear a board. So I think he might have to focus on dropping 1 minute at a time. So maybe he even goes for the Slugger this turn. Tough. What if he just trades this this Overdraft first? Because I feel like his hand isn't doing what he needs it to do.
Yeah, that's possible. He's got a lot of chances here to complete quest, and in fact just decides to take a turn off. Not sure turn off's going to work out well for him though.
I guess with Bloom and Slugger and such, if he wants to super accelerate the quest, he can then use the Overdraft to clean up the mana so he can have a much more smooth Brukan turn once he activates it.
We need to keep an eye on going forward as well is when Lee does get the Brukan down, this charge call is going to put a lot of minion on the board, a lot of minion pressure, and he also has 18 potential damage in direct damage later on. It could end very quickly when the end comes here. Oh, the Bloom. Allow him to end the quest. Doesn't need to do it now, obviously, because he still can't play the Brukan anyway.
Time is short.
Okay. As always, end up having to use the Lightning Bolt because it's just so versatile and does so much for your situation.
Yeah, and just the quest progression as well, right? That's the thing. It's kind of ticking enough boxes to warrant playing, and also, as you mentioned earlier, the Serpent Shrine portals are just there, ready and waiting. And in a post-Brukan world, those are incredible. Not only doing insane damage, but also just generating a board almost out of nowhere.
Brukan world, resources are at a minimum. 2 men enter, 1 leaves with a portal in their face. Who will it be? This is why I didn't go into voice acting.
Yeah, there's the Bloom for the Brukan. And use the Overdraft now to clean up that, 4 overload he's going to have next turn?
Yeah, we've been looking at Lee's damage, but there's so much going on at this side.
Yeah, what if he just Lightning Bolts face and overdrafts?
Take it.
Plays off.
He hasn't seen a Slogger himself yet. That's the only thing there. Some of that might get eradicated back. But yeah, I like it, and he likes it, and you like it. Everybody likes it, apart from Lee, who doesn't like it much.
It's just a ton of damage.
It really is.
Hard to say no, right?
Do anything. Yeah, you can't Zamo that one.
No spell damage available to help out with this Lightning Storm. It will still do a good chunk and he can clear up the board, but this is the problem in the mirror. If your opponent gets a good Brukan turn, which isn't just Brukan pass, and you have to spend your turn just clearing up the board, well, your opponent's going to do double of everything else all over again, right? So the ability to respond is kind of tough right now. He's done a good job, though. 2-5 and a 3-3 on board, but only 9 health. Like,
Storm Strike's into a chunk. Yeah, he's
dead in a lot of circumstances here.
Dead in the circumstance where there's 1 more mana needed.
Yeah, he's just off. Still, though, by doing this, getting the Storm Strike in now while he can, he's asking Lee to do something pretty big, right? He needs to not only heal, but
yeah, put pressure down, do 30 damage.
I was just working out what was going on with that turn. I was confused.
It was a bit weird. It looked like he shot his own minion or something. I couldn't also work it out.
Well, I wonder if he did it in case he got another Storm Strike, maybe, but then that would still affect your own minion. I don't know. But most importantly, Lee needs to do some pretty huge things here. He needs to heal for a ton and mount some kind of offensive and still try and get Brukan down. And he has 5 mana and no cards that
he did it to stop the Slogger, Raven.
Oh, of course.
Now the portal's guaranteed lethal.
Yeah. This is why you shouldn't overthink things in life. The simplest explanation is often the right one.
He just wins because now Lee can't heal.
Yeah. Smooth play.
Very nice. And it's going to be a reverse sweep unless something crazy that we've just forgotten exists comes from charge call.
No, and I think even though this looks weird to just leave yourself on 3, Lee has no other options, and I think he has to play the game where there isn't burn in hand now, right? He's just hoping that that jiuqianyu just doesn't have burn for 1 turn, and then maybe he can make something happen. We can see that's not going to be the case. And another huge win for jiuqianyu as he finishes this off with Serpent Shrine or whatever he wants at this point and takes the victory over Lee. And look at what it means to him.
Yeah,
absolutely huge. Not only has he beaten Lee to get here, he's also beaten SM Brox as well. So 2 huge sort of home turf battles. And he's the one coming out on top, and he's the one who's going to make it to the finals of Masters Tour Silvermoon. Huge congratulations. When I saw him, I've not seen much of him before, but when I saw him earlier on, when I've seen throughout the tournament, he has played fairly solid, like pretty impressive, even in these high-pressure scenarios.
Yeah, and that was one where he's obviously just been holding his breath for like the last 4 minutes or something. He's like, now I can let it all out. Finally, I have defeated Lee, and nice to see that reaction there, because he hasn't really been giving as much of a reaction all the way through, but now we see why. He's been absolutely giga focused on getting this done, and congratulations to him on getting to the final. Also, gotta say about Lee, he's got an incredible win rate in these Masters Tours, over and over again. 7-2, 7-2, top 4,
oh yeah,
7-2, 6-3, like possibly the best record of everybody when it's all shaped out.
Honestly, he is quickly, and probably just already is, one of those players I just expect to be in contention for top 8 now, because it's as long as he's in the tournament, I sort of expect him to be there, or at least close to contention, right? You know, one of those sort of 7-2 scores of old where we had 9 rounds, anything along those lines. But yeah, a huge victory there for jiuqianyu, and it's just a big win overall, and he's now going to await the winner of A-Rock versus Judgment, which is going to be our next match. Lorinda, if you have to pick someone out of that other semi-final, who's going to be facing him in the finals now?
Raven, I am British. We haven't had a British winner in so long. Dead Draw's given it so many runs. It's Judgment Day. I think Judgment's going to make it to the final. But A-Rock, if he makes it back, good for him.
I was wondering where you're going with that. I thought it was going to be, I'm British, I know we're all rubbish, so